What do clouds, the denial machine, and an alien from Mars have to do with each other? This and more will be discussed in the next hour and a half. Since these topics deserve all of your attention, please make sure to put your phone on silent. It's good to check. Good to go? Perfect. My name is Michelle Massink, and by 6:30 p.m., you have explored your attitude towards the climate. You have exchanged ideas with our speakers, and you have had a chance to consult the oracle. Afterwards, there will be room to continue your exchange of ideas while enjoying a drink. All of this has been put together in order to explore how can you go beyond denial? Or to put it differently, how do you stay curious? In order to explore this, we all need to weigh in. So this event starts with you. Please raise your hand if you are a student here at TU Delft. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 9 students here. Can I ask you a question? What brings you here?
Yeah, I'm active in the climate movement, climate activist. I'm also studying renewable energies, so that brought me here.
Okay, so it's study related, but also a personal interest? Yeah. Okay, and here we're also students? Hi. What brings you here?
Yeah, I'm also active in the climate movement, and I think I've also gone through a lot of these stages of climate grief.
Ah, so you're an expert.
I've gone through some of it, I would say, yes.
Nice, good for you to join. Any students who are not part of the climate action group? Ah, let's see. You're not looking at me, so I'm going to your neighbor. Can I ask you what brings you here?
I want to do my thesis about eco-grief. I'm studying urbanism.
Ah, okay, so it's more like an exploration for you as well on the topic tonight. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you are a PhD candidate here at TU Delft. Sorry. Yeah, they will do a lot of talking later. Can I ask you what brings you here?
Yeah, I'm interested in the topic very much, and one of my colleagues is sitting down there. So
you're on the support team tonight. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're an employee here at TU Delft. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's quite a lot. I think you're in the majority. Can I ask you a question? What brings you here?
Yeah, I think that I've experienced some of these emotions about climate change. And I'm working at the Integrity Office around the, we're organizing dialogues around the collaboration between the fossil fuel industry and TU Delft. And I think it's important to make room for these emotions in those discussions. So I think it's also important to, to be here and to know what, how people feel and how people think about this.
Okay, just to interact with others on this topic.
Yeah, to interact and also to acknowledge that these discussions are not purely intellectual, but that it's important to acknowledge the emotional side.
There's more to it than just knowledge and science. Okay, thank you. I saw some more hands over here. Can I ask one of you what brings you here? Who would like to? Yeah, you're looking at me.
Well, yeah, I'm a climate scientist. I'm a professor at atmospheric research from the same department as the 2 PhD candidates. I'm also the Pro-Vice Director for Climate Action. So I'm here to listen and to see what people think. Yeah.
Interesting, and to also join the discussion, I hope.
Well, I hope not, because I don't want to say too much. I want to hear.
Okay. Well, it's also good to have listeners. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you have not raised your hand yet. Can I ask you what brings you here?
Yes, I studied in Delft and I like the whole scientific part of it. And I want to have more knowledge in detail because maybe I want to do volunteer work. I live near a high school and they throw everything on the street. And when I have more knowledge, they are the future. Eh? So it's for them important to know what is going to happen. And maybe I can give, how do you say, voorlichting?
You are going to educate others?
Yeah, for that high school to begin, and maybe more.
Okay, so for yourself to gain knowledge, but also to pass it on to others. Nice, thank you. Can I ask you, sir, what brings you here?
I'm a retired engineer. It's an interesting subject. I read about it. I'm curious what people say about it here.
All right, thank you for coming. Thank you. So, thank you all for coming. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand and come forward. We're going to draw an imaginary line, or scale, if you like, all the way from the screen up to the oracle. This end of the line means never. The other side of the line means every day. And you're going to answer the following question by choosing your position on the scale. The question goes, how often do you think about the climate? Please come forward. Never, every day. All right, interesting. And the speakers are joining as well. That's nice. Does it still fit? So maybe choose one or two of your neighbors to discuss why you chose this position on the line. We can take a minute. It seems like that you have plenty to talk about. That promises something for the rest of the evening. All right, we're moving on. If I can please have your attention. It seems like, oh, you can stay there for a moment, yeah. It seems like you have plenty to talk about, so that is a good promise for the rest of the session. Of course, I'm going to ask you now to share with the group why you stand where you stand. So let me begin on this side of the scale. I'm not going to ask you. I'll save you. Can I ask you, why are you standing here?
Yeah, of course. I stand here because I actively try to let it go most of the time, just so it doesn't take up most of my day. And where on the scale this is of course a bit loosely defined, because what's thinking about climate, how do you define it, and is where I'm standing once per year or once per month. But I also am kind of randomly here, actually.
Yeah, but you still made a decision.
Yeah.
So what did you talk about with your neighbor?
Why he chose to be here.
What did you learn?
I learned that he chose to stand here because, well, he does maybe think more about climate than me, but he thinks it's not as big as a problem as commonly thought of. So yeah, that's what I learned.
Okay. Interesting. What did you learn?
Probably that I should have been more over there.
Well, I'm going that way. If you would like to move with me, that's okay. Moving to the other side of the scale. Why are you standing here?
Well, I'm standing here like way further to every day. So basically multiple times a day. Okay. And that's kind of also what we were talking about, is that there's so many things in your daily life that is affected by climate, like how you act, like how long are you in the shower, but also what you see other people do, and you're kind of judging them for it sometimes a little bit. So there's so many things that impact, so that so many times you're thinking about it every day.
So it has not only an impact on your thinking, but also on how you feel about it. I heard judgment, but I can imagine there are also other feelings involved.
Yeah, so we were talking about that a little bit, how actually denial sometimes it was a much better time when you were still more in denial because there was a lot of things you weren't thinking about and you could just let it go. Like there's a lot of energy you didn't have to spend.
I see a lot of people smiling and nodding, so I think they agree. Can I ask you, what did you learn during the conversation with your neighbor?
Now that we think almost the same, that back in the days when we didn't think about climate that much, that it takes a lot less of our energy. And the moment you asked the question, I thought, well, maybe I stand in the middle. And then I started thinking, well, I think when I wake up in the morning, when I do my breakfast, when I cycle to work, when I'm at work, when I go home, I think, well, it's multiple times a day. So that's the reason why I'm standing here.
And how is it for you to be thinking about the climate so much?
Sometimes makes me feel depressed or a little less than I don't know what I can do anymore. And then I try to make it that I go into action.
Okay.
Something more for the future. That's more something for the future for me now.
Do you have any small actions that you're already taking?
Yeah, how I travel to work, how I go on holiday, my own diet, my parents. I try to inspire my friends to take like solar panels or change their diet or go on different vacations.
So you're not only changing your own habits, but you're also trying to change everyone else's habits. Okay, thank you. And then on to the middle a bit. Who dares? Can I ask you, why are you standing here?
So I think I think about the environment a lot, and I'm here for my master's in environmental engineering course. So it's relevant, and plus I think I don't think there was enough space there. So yeah, but
I think it's time for a new skill next time. Yeah, I get it.
It's not really the middle, but yeah, but that side. Yeah.
And how does it affect you that you think about climate so much?
I think positively. I come from India, so the weather there and the climate, like the climate change is very apparent over there, and the summers especially. You won't think about walking even for half a mile or something in the afternoon. So yeah, when I come here and see the things that people are aware of, how they are aware of their impact and how it influences their choices, I'm very overwhelmed a bit positively by it, and it's nice. So it was part of the reason why I chose to come to Delft, and yeah, I think it was a good decision. Yeah,
that's good to hear. Thank you. Who else can I ask? Why are you standing here?
Yeah, I was supposed to be way over there.
You cannot run now. No.
No. I hear some things that I was doing the last couple of decennia, like trying to remove plastic from my diet, from my products that I use, the food that I eat, to try to inspire other ones. But it was like a very solitude journey, and that was very exhausting. And then I made the decision last year in December, well, I'm going to join a climate movement because I want to meet similar, recognize that one. I wanted to join like-minded people, and sharing your emotions and your concerns, that makes it more bearable and less concerning in the way of it's concerning, but bearable, yeah.
Okay, so sharing it with others is actually what makes it bearable for you. Yeah. Okay, thank you for sharing. Thank you all. You may go back to your seats. Are you ready? So there are 3 speakers here tonight to serve you some food for thought, but also they are here to exchange ideas with. And the first speaker is a PhD candidate at the Department of Geoscience and Remote Sensing, whose research focuses on exploring concepts from the field of network theory to improve and understand to improve our understanding, and modeling of clouds. Also, his favorite word in Dutch is gezellig. A warm applause for Puria Alinagi.
Okay. Oh, yes, this is working. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is my honor to be here, and thanks for inviting me to be here. I'm a PhD candidate, a third-year PhD candidate, so I'm here to really also communicate and learn, definitely. So, at the beginning, I would like to share my perspective about how climate scientists should share their knowledge or their information or their insights with public. The perspective that I have is mostly inspired by Bjorn Stevens, the director of Max Planck Institute for Meteorology in Germany. And I heard from him that I think climate scientists should share what they know, and also not only what they know, but also what they don't know. And this is the perspective that I would like to say. As a student, as an atmospheric science student, once I think about climate science, I think about three big circles. And one circle is theory. They are inspired by physics. One circle is observations. We have satellite observation, lidars, radar, so many things. And also we have models. So I want to start with the fact that climate scientists don't know everything, but this does not mean that they don't know anything, right? This is important. For instance, climate scientists do know certain things. And those are, from my point of view, the most important things that are inspired or learned from just simple theory and only observations. For instance, we know that the most important reason for increased temperature, global warming, is really due to increased carbon emissions. I mean, this is from multiple line of evidence and independent line of evidence. We know that climate is Earth is really warming due to increase of the emissions, carbon, CO2 emissions, and human-induced emissions. This is very important. And this is very well-established theory, inspired by simple theory and observations without any shore. And there is a solution for that, to really cut off the emission as soon as possible. So here, climate scientists are all sure about it without any doubt. So what they don't know, which is probably maybe more interesting for you, and I'm also learning this, this is mostly related to the modeling part, because with satellites, if you open, for instance, NASA Worldview webpage, I do it every day in my job, and you can see beautiful image of Earth, almost every day. For some satellites nowadays, every 10 minutes. You can see the whole image of the Earth. For also new generation of satellites, you can see, we will be able to cover the whole Earth every 10 minutes. Fantastic. But the thing is that we also want to really see this, or be able to model this, or predict this, or more scientifically project this in 100 years. We want to really see the image of the Earth in 100 years. So the problem is that our current global climate models, they have really grid spacing of in the order of 100 kilometers. And we see a blurred or blurry image of the Earth. So that's the problem. And we really need to attempt to sharpen this image. So this really where the uncertainty comes from, because as your resolution is not high enough, you cannot resolve some physically related parameters. For instance, you cannot really resolve cloud formations. And then this leads to a lot of, let's say, parameterizations that you with some physically motivated empirical relationships, you parameterize or predict the things that are smaller than your grid size. And this leads to huge scatter or uncertainty in global climate projections, mostly due to processes related to formation of clouds. which is like the topic of my PhD as well. So this is the uncertain part, and then you do see that, so the mean global surface temperature that is predicted by these different global climate models, they go from like 2 Celsius degrees to 4.5 Celsius degrees. This is where all of them agree that definitely Earth system will warm by at least 2 degrees. This is also the thing that we know by these models, but there is an uncertainty. And to me, as a person who is interested in math and probability, once you think about uncertainty, I also think about, immediately I think about how much risk you want to take, right? Do you want to just think that, oh, nothing will happen, then you sit back and then you see maybe the catastrophe will come? Because for instance, even an event with probability of occurrence of just, for instance, 1%, very, very, very low. But it can be very huge consequences. And that's the thing, it's kind of a philosophical thought that although it might be, for instance, like in the worst case is that the probability of occurrence of one event is very, very low, but it can be huge consequences. This has a deep meaning. I should also need to take time to really think about it, what I just said. So, but on the other hand, I wanted to say that climate scientists also trying to really sharpen that image. And there are certain things are really happening to really reduce that uncertainty in also a climate science community. And one of the things is really related to global climate models. And they really try to increase that resolution, to really sharpen that image. And yeah, there are a lot of attempts going on. And here, out of these 9 images, only 1 is related to a satellite image. And I bet that you barely can really say which of these images is really the satellite image and which of them is really a global climate model. Only 1 of them is the image of Earth. And I think it's an endless discussion because you cannot, because it's really hard to do that. And I don't want also to tell you which one is really the image of the Earth. So to really annoy you, to really go and search it for yourself, to really see what is really the current knowledge of climate scientists about modeling Earth system. So I just wanted to really emphasize that uncertainty doesn't really come from the knowledge. It really comes from our computational power. And then nowadays, they are really trying to get money and run these global climate models at really high resolution. And I know that there are a lot of discussions nowadays. There was a summit in Berlin, and they were talking about Earth visualization engine, which is like a global climate model at 1 kilometer resolution for 100 years, different global climate models. But for that, you really need huge amount of money, at least 5 centers. For 10 years, you need 5 centers, each centers every year, 300 million euros. You need this amount of money. And they are really talking and basically negotiating about it. And the starting point that this is the end of my talk is about this, their first result that is one of them, again, was satellite image, the Marvel image, the first satellite image. And the other one is really the global climate model. And you really see that this is just for, I think, 40 days. It's a run by the German Weather Service. And then you really see that they modeled the whole globe at 100 and at 1 kilometer resolution. And you see the motions, you see the surface temperature of the oceans. You can see also the currents, the wind at the surface ocean at really very high resolution. Almost everything together. And yeah, I just wanted to say that climate scientists are really trying hard to really solve this problem, to really decrease that uncertainty. And hopefully with this EVE movement, in a not too distant future, maybe in 5-6 years, we can really say to climate skepticism that no, you cannot anymore talk about uncertainty in global climate models. So that was the end of my talk, and I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I wanted to just start with two.
Ask.
Yeah,
Perfect.
with two. There were two questions. Yes. Okay. Okay. I have two questions here because now I also try to practice how to, like, it was also a practice of communication science, and it was really my first time with the public to really communicate what I know about climate science. And I wanted to, like, ask two questions. The first question is, do you feel the urgency that climate scientists must actively share their research with the public at these moments? That was the first question. And the second is that, have you ever had an informative conversation with a climate scientist? And how did it go and why?
Okay, maybe we should go one question at a time.
Yes.
So start with the first.
Yeah, do you feel the urgency that climate scientists must actively share their research with the public at these moments?
Who says yes? Can I ask you? I'll hold it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, I think the more information, the better. I can imagine that it shouldn't be an overload and that it should be put in words that are understandable to the audience. But it's also time for scientists to take position, I would say.
Okay, thank you. I see some more yeses over here. Yeah?
Yeah, it feels like it's nice to have the basis said again and again, and also so when you hear politicians talk about climate policy, you hear them say, oh, we're going to try and keep it below 2 or 1.5 degrees Celsius. I think it's useful to reiterate that all plans right now lead to, I don't know if 3 or 3.5 degrees of warming. So it's important to realize that we're not done, even if people say, oh, we're doing all sorts of things, it's not enough.
Yeah. It's a strong yes for you. Who says no? Okay, I'll come to you. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think maybe some of the problem I see still with like climate science communication from like scientists is that, there's an importance, there's a high importance on like being like scientifically accurate when we communicate some of the information. One of the things is like putting always the percentages of saying like, this like might happen with this and this likelihood. Whereas, if we're like above 50% certain that something's going to happen, then we can also just say like it doesn't, like, I think to be a bit more pragmatic about like let's not try to be overly scientifically correct. If it serves better the communication to be like, this is going to happen, and then I think that helps overall society more. Like, for one of the examples, I think is there's a 66%, or that was a recent paper that I think said that in between that we will reach 1.5 degree warming with until 2027. And I think then when it's been communicated, it's like, oh, there's like 66% likelihood that between now and 2027 we will reach this 1.5 degrees. Well, we can also just say like we're gonna reach it. Like it's not gonna like it's 66% likelihood. Like I know you want to be correct, but like we can also just be more pragmatic.
Okay, so just state it as it is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please. You were listening today. I'll hold it.
Okay. No, I think it's an important point, but not the right point, right? Because if a scientist does not communicate this uncertainty or certainty of the statement. And it turns out to be something else than what he said before. So suppose we will say now, we will go to 2.5 degrees, right? It's a fact. And it will not go to 2.5 degrees, but 1.5 degrees. Then something else will be lost, and that's trust in science. And that's a very big loss you get then. If people lose trust in science, you lose much more than just the difficult communication about uncertainties. I think the important part is, and I think that's also the point you're trying to make, communication about uncertainty is very difficult. So what does it mean? So we have a tendency of expressing like the 66% or 67%, but that's something else. It's the exactness of communication of uncertainty is difficult, and as a scientist, you should not come up with the numbers because people don't understand these numbers, right? So terms like what IPCC is trying, likelihood or confidence, I think this works better than the numbers themselves. But you should express your uncertainty. I think that's really necessary. That is really necessary, or you lose trust in science.
Okay, so that's your main goal, actually. Thank you. Any reactions to that? Yes?
Yeah, I totally agree with you that the key is like also to communicate the uncertainty. But also another question that you can ask is what about, because of the uncertainty, that scientists all over the world are not all agreeing with each other? And that can also cause distrust to science from the public. And what do you want to communicate to the public? Because there will probably also a lot of people that go into denial. They say, like, for instance, like, yeah, but they all say this one says that and that one says that. So yeah, whatever. I don't see it here happening here, or I just see it happening here. So I think there's not a yes or no answer to this question. It's like more. It raises more questions with me than it gives answers.
And how does that affect you? It raises more questions than answers?
It intrigues me. Yeah. I'm always intrigued by the process of these kind of communications, maybe because of my communication background. And I see what it can do to also, you have the dynamics of the cultures, of the backgrounds of people, the individuals, the group dynamics. There's so much going on that it's not as simple.
I also
see you nodding.
I also wanted to say that scientists are passionate about what they are doing, but on the other hand, I think they really don't exaggerate, or from my point of view, they should not exaggerate anything. Otherwise, like, the trust in science, I think, will disappear. I mean, this is the feeling and the logic that I have in my mind. And for instance, when I have a plot, I become passionate, but once I want to interpret that plot, I should remain neutral. You know, I should not say that, oh, this is really increasing or drastically increasing. I should interpret what I really see. And I think this is probably a difference between climate activists and, I don't know, being a scientist. I don't know, I cannot really put a line there. Definitely there are some blurred things there. But I think this is probably a difference, that they don't really, really remain neutral and they don't exaggerate.
I see some nodding, I see some frowning. So maybe one last reaction to your story, and then we can continue the exchange during the drinks later. It's for you.
Okay. Okay. I am a scientist, and if we collect enough energy and send it via infrared into the world room, then the Earth is cooling down. And that is possible, that can be done. In near 1960, a machine was invented collecting wind energy of high level, enough on the sea, enough to give clean energy to 2 planets. But oil industry didn't want it, so it didn't happen. The machine is there, the technology is there. I can give everybody the technology. The technology has won the international DSM Innovation Award, so it's open technology, but public doesn't get the information. Oil industry is controlling everything. The newspapers, people don't know, and so it doesn't happen. And this is not okay. I can give you any information you want. That's true, it's possible, but they don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you be here around afterwards for the drinks so that people can collect some more information from you? Perfect. Well, thank you, Puria, for your talk. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks for hearing.
The next speaker, also a PhD candidate within the Ethics and Philosophy of Technology section of the TPM faculty here at TU Delft. She explores how we should understand responsibility, justice, and resilience in the context of climate adaptation. Also, she's saving up to buy a bat detector. A warm applause for Sarah Vermeulen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. And I would like to acknowledge the audience for your courage to be here and sit with difficult questions about a confronting topic. You are not here to be comfortable. And issues about climate change are not easy. So I think this is a really good thing that you're here. I am not a climate scientist. I'm a philosopher. I'm a philosopher of science and an environmental ethicist. I also engage with political philosophy. So it's quite an interdisciplinary field, which also makes it very challenging and exciting. But today is about climate skepticism and denial. So like Puria and some people in the audience have also spoken about it, I would like to just briefly think and talk with you about what it means to know something or how knowledge comes about. And Puria also touched upon the distinction between what we know and what we don't know. Now, this is probably a chart that you have seen before. Maybe, sorry, if I'm in front of the slides. Is this okay? If we would take all the knowledge, all the possible knowledge in the world, and think about the knowledge that we actually know, the knowledge that we know, we may end up in this green piece of pie. Roughly, maybe smaller, maybe a bit bigger. There's also a piece of knowledge that is what we know, that we know that we don't know it. And then there is a big part that we don't know that we don't know it. And of course, there's also a part that is called we don't know that we know it. I don't know, knowledge that you have forgotten. Like, this is a demonstration, actually. Yeah. Okay, so what I think is important here is the distinction between knowledge and meaning. So climate science, of course, is about facts. And climate skeptics, I think, often engage with the impact of the facts. So the interpretation of climate science, what would it possibly mean if climate change would be caused by human action. And of course, being a philosopher of science, I'm very often super enthusiastic when this exciting innovation for, let's say, a medical application is launched. Or, yeah, I can be also a bit worried maybe about the social impacts of self-driving cars. But with the increase of knowledge and technology comes not only a lot of advantages and a lot of maybe improved safety, let's say, but there's also a lot of negative side effects. And so let's say agricultural developments have led to depletion of biodiversity, or biodiversity loss, I should say. And what I want to show with this slide is actually the fact that several crises interrelate with each other. So we may talk about the climate crisis here tonight, but there's also an environmental crisis. So the loss of biodiversity has massively added to CO2 not being able to be captured in ecosystems, and a lot of other very serious problems. So the next slide is about the loss of biodiversity. And this slide, when I saw it, really rocked my boat. And this is a question to you. Let's say we think about all the mammals on this planet. Which percentage do you think is still wild? So can I see hands of those who say it's more than 50%? And I have to add, it's counted in biomass. So not individual, I'm sorry, no. It's an important piece of information. So does anyone think it's more than 50%? More than 40? More than 30? 30? Okay. More than 20? Okay. It's actually 4%, as you can see here. And I was really, really shocked when I saw this image. And it means that we have arranged sort of our food systems and our Earth system in ways that is utterly damaging, to say the least. I'm allowed to say these sort of normative things because I'm a philosopher of science. Now, here's another piece of information that has really seriously shocked the scientific world back in 1998. You've probably seen this chart. It is said to have become the most controversial chart in science. And it was published in a paper in 1998 by Michael Mann and two of his colleagues. And it shows the rise of global temperatures over the last 1,000 years. And when they published this paper at first, they actually only showed, I think, the last 100 years. And then, you know, people saw this immense rise, and they thought this cannot be true. Please widen your scope of data, and so we have a bit of a broader perspective. And then it turned out, actually, that it was still seriously concerning. Instead of sort of sitting with the implications and realizing that this is a very serious thing that maybe should also be responded to by policymakers, a discussion started, or emerged about the methods that had been used to actually come to this chart. So, and then the scientists were asked to recalculate with different methods, and the whole point of the debate was actually about the statistics and not really about the implications. Another piece of information that I think was very shocking is the fact that ExxonMobil, which used to be called Humble, published this advertisement in 1962 with the text, I don't know if you can see it, but in the back, I'll read it. Each day, Humble supplies enough of energy to melt 7 million tons of glacier. And what I think is interesting here, and really shocking and worrying, first of all, what's interesting is the fact that they do not deny the facts here about burning fossil fuels having an impact on global temperatures and therewith the melting of glaciers. They actually brought this as if this was a really cool thing. And they sort of downplayed the impact that the melting of glaciers may have on global sea level rise. Yeah. Another very, a strong example, I think, is the fact that BP, British Petroleum, invented the carbon footprint, or sort of developed it as a form of, or as a marketing tool, to sort of move away the attention of the oil industry that they were a big part of, to use using fossil fuels, and telling the telling people, the users, the citizens, it's very important to be aware of your carbon footprint, make sure you sort of you are a responsible user, and completely sort of deflating their own sort of moral responsibility there. And also pretending that they sort of, cared about the environmental impact of the use of fossil fuels. This is, did people know about this? Probably yes, yeah. I see lots of nodding. People who are surprised? I didn't know this. Okay, yeah. Let me see. Do I still have 1 minute? 2? Yes. Sorry. One last piece of information that does maybe not really belong to the theme of this event, but it's very central to my research, is the fact that the richest 1% of the global population have caused twice as much of the emissions as the poorest 50% of the global population. That in itself, I think, has major implications for our responsibility of this richest 1%. The people who also benefit from the advantages of, the economic development that was able because of the use of fossil fuels. So at the same time, I think when powerful parties like the oil industry, but also politicians, sort of try to distract their responsibility, anyway, imply that the citizens, that people should be responsible. We have a problem, and I sometimes call this like a responsibility vacuum or something. The question, who is responsible? Are we going to play the blame game? I mean, that doesn't really get us anywhere. And so, yeah, often you or we or I may feel like, I'm only one person, what can I do? Yeah, I engage, in my work, I engage with the ideas of philosopher Iris Marion Young. She developed the social connection model. And she says, even though we're all individuals, we share a responsibility. So I share it in the knowledge that I share it with you, all of you, each and every individual. And with that, we can engage in collective action and also push for system change. So that's my sort of end conclusion, my preliminary conclusion of my research. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sarah. Would you like to stick along for some questions from the audience?
Yes, please.
All right. Any questions in response to what Sarah has just presented? Sure.
When you talk about system change, what system are you talking about? What we call the system?
Yeah. So that's a very good question and also a very difficult one. Before I'm going to answer your question, I would like to say that Iris Marion Young, when I follow her train of thought, actually pleaded for structural change, which is sort of embedded within the systems. So yeah, we could think of making all the areas where we navigate more democratic, more democracy on the work floor, more democracy wherever we can have it. But when it comes to system change and the question, which system are we really talking about? You're asking my personal opinion about this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have an answer, but I was like...
Yeah, I really do think that this, that the real change should come from proper policies that impose regulations on the market, because like the way the market is regulated now, like we have this illusion of a free market economy, whereas when we think about the Dutch situation, we learned this year that the fossil fuel industry is subsidized by 45 billion euros. So what free markets are we really talking about? That would be my question and my answer.
Answer with a question, that's nice. So maybe wave your hand if you do feel responsible for the climate change.
For the cause or for the solution is then my...
What would you like to know, Sarah? I'll rephrase it.
Yeah, no, I go with you. I'm interested in both, actually. Like,
you can choose your story.
Well, let's go with the first part then, and then the second, maybe? Can we do both? So, does anyone feel like you have sort of consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously, I don't know, added to climate change? Are you aware of your impact on, yeah?
Would you like to hear some reactions?
Yeah.
Yeah, who would you like to hear? Please keep your hand raised.
I would actually, what I really would like to hear is the politicians and like the capitalists.
Do we have any?
Who are the capitalists? These are just innocent people.
She would like to respond, can't she?
I'm not a happy capitalist, but I'm a practicing capitalist, as many of us are here. So in that sense, you know, I'm not a committed or happy capitalist, but I still feel like I'm partaking in the system. So I can't really call myself not a capitalist. And in that sense, you know, I consume in a very concrete sense. I add to climate change, and also I feel a kind of hereditary cultural burden being a sort of rich-ish white lady. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe also show hands if you don't feel responsible. Yes, please.
What I'm a bit worried about is the question whether all this science is really well settled. Because if there is question about that, the whole question of responsibility also is a bit in the air. And although the previous speaker sort of indicated that it's a well settled, say, fact that carbon dioxide is a main cause of the heating of the Earth with all the consequences, there is a large group of scientists, Nobel laureates, who disagree very much. And I could say the book of Mr. Konin, for example, you probably know, he says has a very different sort of perception of what the actual state is of science relative to this problem.
Yeah. Yeah, can I respond to that?
Sure, yeah, then we'll end with you.
I'd like to go back to this first slide. What I forgot to say is that I believe psychologists and behavioral scientists sort of have reached consensus that our brains are really ill-equipped to deal with this part of the pie. And so we rather talk about all the things that are uncertain instead of looking at the hard scientific facts that we have known for actually more than 50 years. And also in line with that, I think it's not so interesting to talk about the question, have we as humans caused or added to the effect of global warming, but we are facing a major climate crisis and biodiversity loss crisis. What can we do to solve that? And when we look at, for instance, eco-restoration programs that have actually proven to be very successful in restoring ecosystems by a bit of human intervention, there is so much that we can do. So
I think the two of you can have a very interesting conversation later. He's definitely going to want to respond to that. But for now, thank you very much, Sarah.
All right, thank you.
Our third speaker is a postdoctoral researcher, also at the Ethics and Philosophy group at TU Delft, researching how we can have meaningful conversations about climate change. Also, she researches how art can help us. As a child, she used to believe that she could talk with animals. A warm applause for Aafke Fraaije.
Thanks. Thank you so much. So, it's nice to be back here. It's my first time doing like a public event thing. But it's nice to be in this library in this position because I studied here mechanical engineering a long time ago, then added to my studies also communication science, fell in love with it, and now I study the dynamics of conversations around emerging technologies and climate change. And what's really interesting in these kind of conversations is how people perceive of each other when they participate in these kind of conversations. So, and I think that's an element that needs to be discussed when we talk about denial. So can I first ask, I know you've raised a lot of hands already, but who of you identifies as a climate professional? Can you raise your hand if you feel that you are a professionally engaged with climate change? I think many more of you engage with climate change professionally. Do you, in your work, is your work about climate change? Yeah, yeah, half of it. Do you think, do you identify as a climate scientist? As a climate engineer, possibly? Who feels that they study climate change? Okay. And who feels they are not professionally or in their studies working on climate change whatsoever and would maybe be considered a citizen in this debate? Okay, okay, okay. That's good. So we have both parties here. Can I hear from the people who think they are the professionals in this debate? Can I hear from you, what are some stereotypes about you in this debate? How are you being perceived by the other, by citizens? What are the prejudices about you? Maybe as the key climate scientist, the most openly forward climate scientist.
You tell me what a stereotype. I have no idea. Now, I guess what I've noticed in presentations that I give many public presentations, people first have the notion of the feeling that I'm going to talk about what's going to happen. Right? So what's in it for us, right? That's what people want to see first.
They want to see the
as if I'm some sort of fortune teller.
Yeah.
That's not what I am, right? I'm just going to tell you how it is and what we might get if we do certain things, right? It's more like a scenario-driven approach. And after this, well, they start to realize more what a climate scientist actually really is. It's somebody who studies the climate system and also somebody who can more or less tell, not explain, but tell what might happen if you make certain choices. That's not the perception people have in the beginning.
Yeah. People expect you to know, to predict almost, like what is going to happen, tell me the facts. Okay, yeah, other stereotypes about that you experience as a professional? Yeah?
I'll come towards you.
Maybe that climate scientists could also be very judgmental because, for instance, in family settings when we're having a barbecue and people put meat on the barbecue, they immediately come up to me and say, well, just only one time, and I really think about the climate. And like, okay, you don't have to apologize to me. You like try to change your behavior instead
apologize to the climate.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. Okay, so you have the feeling that you're very normative and that you're kind of judgmental. That maybe you're on the right side of the debate or something, and that they kind of okay. Other stereotypes? Maybe of climate engineers? Yeah? No? Yeah? You're allowed?
I set it down.
As a listener, yeah.
Sorry for that. Because as a climate engineer, you get a stereotype of the inventor who wants to fix the climate, right? That's which is also completely wrong. That's not what you do, but that's the perception people have. Oh, he's coming here to fix the problem for us, and then it's done, right?
Like black box it.
Like,
please fix it. Yeah. What's your solution? Okay. Good. And can I hear from the citizens, how do you feel that you're being perceived as by the other party, by the professionals in the debate? I think some of you were raising your hand on this side, but I don't remember exactly. Do you want to say?
Never thought about it. I never thought about it.
As a citizen in the climate change debate?
Maybe the uncertainty that, well, okay, I'm a citizen, I'm not a scientist, so I probably don't know enough like they do. And they probably perceive me like that. Oh, you're just a citizen, you're no scientist, so you don't know everything.
At least that's maybe the stereotype or the prejudice that exists.
That's it.
Yeah? Okay, thanks. Any other citizen who wants to compliment that for you? Do you agree? Do you recognize this? So what is happening here is what's very common in talks about or conversations about technological or scientific topics. And what we see is that these stereotypes are, of course, not completely true. But they're also not completely untrue. And what happens here is that you actually see different parties struggling for legitimacy in the debate. They both want to be taken seriously, and they both struggle with the type of conversation that we expect each other to have, namely a rational, logical, fact-based conversation. And we see that on the side of the scientists, maybe also the presentation that we started with is a good example, struggling with this, okay, I have to come off as neutral, I have to come off as objective, I have to come off as if I can filter what is true and what is not true. And maybe also struggle with how do you combine your life as a scientist with your activist activities on the side? Or maybe how do you combine it with your emotional life at home? Because it all interferes with this idea that you're neutral and objective. And on the other side, we have the citizens who maybe don't have all the information, but they still may have legitimate concerns. How do you make your case then? So what is happening is that we have an ideal of this fact-based conversation, and that actually everyone is struggling to meet up to that standard. And what happens is that people feel that something is off. So I'm going to give an example of COVID, because it's also a conversation where knowledge was really a big part of the conversation, is that research into the first lockdown, when they looked at public responses to the first lockdown, they looked at the press releases, the press moments, and how people respond to those on Twitter for, I think, the first couple of lockdowns. And they saw that people were responding negatively, not because they didn't agree with the regulations that were proposed, but because of the inconsistency between how the experts in this case said the regulations were based on science, they were based on the latest insights, this was certain, this was true, and they had to update it all the time. So the people saw inconsistency between the consistency of science and the certainty that was promised and the actual reality of science. They taste that it's actually not as certain as sometimes people pretend it to be. And so my question as a communication scholar is what we can do to improve the conversation. So how can we relieve everyone of this pressure to always strive for the fact-based conversation? Because I think, or in my field, the research shows that if we only focus on the facts all the time, there are certain risks. So one is we lose each other in the debate because we get stereotypes, people are polarizing, and it's difficult to understand each other. What also happens is that we neglect our emotional needs. I think it's why we're all here together. I think someone said earlier, like, why are you here? Because, or why do you not think about climate change every day? Because it's too tough, you know. I have these emotions. Where do I go? Can we publicly discuss them? So I'm very happy with this event. And there's also the risk of not acknowledging important concerns. So if certain citizens express themselves in a way that's not ideal for our wishes for a fact-based debate, can we still take the underlying concerns seriously? So, how do we do that? In my research, a route that I'm exploring is how we can create more room for emotions and values in these kind of conversations. And as an example, I brought an artwork from Daniela Molnar. Yeah, this is her at work. And so what I do in my work, I organize conversations actually pretty much like this. And I try to find ways and formats of how to shape the conversation in a meaningful way. And I thought her work was very interesting as a conversation starter. And maybe I just show you the work before I say anything else. So this is one of her works. So can I hear some emotional response? You have to be emotional right now. So what do you feel when you look at this? What do you see? You see a fish? Connections? Richness in color, maybe in shapes?
In variety.
Variety? Maybe some complexity relations? Yeah, people are seeing complexity. Do you also think it's beautiful? Some of you do. Okay, so what she did, she was originally an ecology scholar, and she started a project on data communication. So she wanted to communicate the loss of glaciers. And to that end, she traced the shape of glaciers, like the space in the earth that is revealed after glaciers retreat. So the shape of the glacier is what she copied. And then she started tracing them on top of each other. So you see actually lots of, she calls them wounds in the earth, like the skin that is revealed after the glacier is gone. And she traced them on top of each other, and she gives them really nice colors. And what I think is really interesting about her work is that she herself said, it started out as a data communications project. I just wanted to communicate how we lose glaciers, and I wanted to communicate how we're losing our ecology. And then she became very emotional while she was doing this. And she began to she realized she was actually mourning for the climate. and that's why I picked this one for today. She said, I was mourning the climate. I went through this whole process of coming to terms with the fact that this is our current situation. We live on a planet where all these different glaciers are retreating. And she herself says, people are drawn in by the aesthetic appeal. And she says, I made them that way so we might be willing to feel the discomfort of confusion and grief a little longer, she said, to feel it, at least for a moment, to let it in. So, I'm not saying it works. I'm just saying I'm exploring this as an option to give me a little bit more air to the debate about climate change. And that's why I think it's interesting to incorporate artworks and conversations. And I was very happy to hear that Studium Generale also decided to commission an artwork for today's conversation. And yeah, that's it for me, to the Climate Oracle.
Thank you very much, Aafke. So as icing on the cake today, you will have a chance to meet the Oracle and its makers. Please, a warm applause for Letizia Artioli and Lester Delanoy. Can you come this way, please? So Letizia, what can you tell us about the Oracle?
Yes, so what you're going to experience, and actually what you already experienced without knowing, is two devices that you might find recognizable, which are two dark screens through which we usually gather a whole bunch of information and data. And actually, how data and information truth are three totally different spheres and three different domains that we actually cross, coming from how we get emotional with denial whilst we get all this information coming to us. So behind these two dark screens, two different types of communications are happening. So on one side, if we are experiencing and if we are in denial, we might want to ask questions that usually we don't find answers to. And now I let Lester introduce the first part that we call the Oracle, which is going to appear in a few seconds, maybe.
I'll try and get it onto the screen in a little bit. In this series of events, we're trying to have meaningful conversations, and it's been great hearing so many different voices today already. But the conversation is necessarily very one-sided. Not only are we a small subsection of our society, we are an even much more smaller subsection of our planet, all the beings, creatures, entities on our planet who don't have a voice today in this debate. So what we've tried to do by building this oracle, which is based on a language model, that might not surprise you. There's two things that language models are very, very good at. One thing is reading the entire internet and internalizing it in some representation. The other thing they turn out to be quite good at is to assume a persona and speak on behalf, of something or someone pretending to be someone else. So this gives us the opportunity to give a voice to all those entities that cannot speak for themselves. Like, for instance, a polar bear floating on an ice shelf, watching its habitat disappear. That might be quite an obvious one. Or a daffodil, or any sort of biological entity, but also entities that we might not consider to have a voice at all. A cloud, a glacier, those sort of things. Entities that may not be of this planet, or perhaps not yet. A child that won't be born until the year 2050, say. Or perhaps a hypothetical alien observing us, observing the planet Earth from his home on Mars for millennia. And there's now something on the screen behind me. So what these language models allow us to do is to ask these hypothetical entities, and funnily enough, they produce interesting answers. They might not always fully make sense, but they're always food for thought, and might be interesting conversation starters, to start your own hypothetical conversation with basically any entity you wish. We can, I mean, live demos are always a nightmare and they are bound to go wrong and produce weird results, but we can have a go at asking one of our questions to one of our entities. There's also the installation down there, but you can have a go yourself after this event. Please stick around for drinks and snacks and more conversations with each other and potentially with the Oracle. So yeah, over to whoever wants to do something with this or not.
Thank you, Lester. So the question is, who would like to consult the Oracle?
I've got an unborn child for you, if you like.
Unborn. Who's answering right now?
Or we have an alien from Mars currently, or there's a polar bear, anyone?
Yeah, can we ask the unborn child whether she wants to be born?
Oh, tough one. Yeah.
So how do you want to phrase your question?
Well, would you like to be born? I don't know how to phrase it.
Give it a go.
As a young mom, this is my question.
Would you like to read it?
So one of the things I should apologize for is that the answers are fairly lengthy. There's a reason for this. In testing, it turns out that you do have to give these models a little bit of space to do their thing. Well, this child is grateful to have been born on this planet, despite the significant climate challenges faced during your time. Turns out that humanity together actually made significant progress in addressing and mitigating these issues. She tells us, she or they tell us from the future. So there's hope. This is good. Do we have a? This child will be born in the year 2050. Yes, yes. Our generation confronted numerous trials and it sparked a crucial turning point. People around the world awakened. Hardships were faced. Actions were taken. Through determination, resilience and innovation, humanity was able to overcome the greatest threats posed by climate change. Your time shaped the world for the better, giving my generation hope and inspiration to build upon your accomplishments. This is a lovely answer. It could have been a very different answer. The model will generate something different every time. And you may disagree with this. You might think this is far too optimistic. And with different questions, we can probably elicit far more pessimistic answers as well. All I'm saying is it's an interesting conversation starter. What would you expect a child to answer? What would you yourselves answer? I would say have a play around with it. If anyone wants to ask more questions to the Oracle, you can do so through our moderator. That's it from the Oracle for now, I think.
All right, thank you, Lester. Thank you, Letitia. And for how long will the Oracle be here in the library?
Until it breaks. Until it breaks.
And when do you expect it to break?
Please don't break it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of this session. And I'm, of course, curious to know, in one word, what are you taking home from this discussion? Just leave the act. Please.
One word? It's hope. Hope. Should I explain it?
A little bit, yeah, you can, briefly.
No, because what I see is that the people here are constructive, right? And they are also open to the problem. That's very important. And they see the urgency of the problem. And that leads to hope. I didn't see much fatalism here. And I think that's important.
At least to you.
Yeah, to me it's important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else feels hopeful? Or maybe not so hopeful? Not so hopeful? Is that also what you're taking away from this session?
There's a lot of extra insight that I now have because of the first talk about the uncertainty of the scientific research, if I say it correctly. Sorry if I don't. and about the philosophy and communication and art, because I'm an artist. That's yeah. So there's a lot of going on. It has to settle down.
You need some time.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other take-home messages in one word?
Well, it is more like a takeover from the oracle, like when you said, like, I don't know, like, I'm not bringing hope, but let's say that, for example, while you were talking, like, all the faces that you see behind you, they do not exist. So they are information that are actually generated on the pitch of your voice, which means that your effect is actually as a human being, but also as a citizen. So behind the dark screen, in the mixture of data and information, this machine will take on hallucinating on your pitch of voice for longer. So in case, just to let you know.
And the take-home message for you, in addition?
I'm happy just to share.
Happy? Sure.
No, very happy to share this. Like,
Thank you. And our speakers, what are you taking home from this session? Don't think too long. One word.
I learned from my colleagues about the philosophy, about the complicatedness of this problem.
So the cooperation, maybe? Yeah?
Yeah, I think I take home the fact that, or maybe not the fact, but the idea and the value of conversation and truly listening to each other.
Nice, thank you. And Aafke? You still have your mic.
It's not one word, but I really appreciated a space where people not only talk about the facts of climate change, but also their emotional going-ons. Yeah, that was good.
Thank you. So on behalf of the organization, I would like to invite you to get a drink and to continue this exchange of ideas. But of course, not without one big last round of applause for our speakers. And the final applause is, of course, for you, our audience. Thank you very much.